Hello, America. Welcome to Your Leo Nation. I am the Chief, Mark Garrett. We are once again here in the place where we believe in the rule of law, civil society, and self-responsibility. We have an amazing guest today. I mean that, and you'll know why here in a minute. You know, we had probably last year, I think, 150 or so line of duty deaths of men and women across the country who wear the uniform. And behind every single one of those tragic losses is a loved one and our loved ones. And one of those people has been kind enough to join us today, Janine Paredes. Janine, I was just talking off air about how impressed I was with you when we met last year, a few months after the loss of your husband, who I will allow you to talk about here pretty soon. Just your strength. My years in law enforcement, I've interacted with way too many people who've lost loved ones in the line of duty, and the way you carried yourself that day and today and all times when we interact. I've seen you on television. It's just amazing. So I want to give you props for being as strong as I would hope to be in such a horrible situation. But we want to talk about your husband. So Janine, your husband was one of two officers who was killed in the line of duty June 14th, 2022. El Monte police officer, actually El Monte police sergeant, Micheal Paredes, and officer Santana was killed in the same incident. So with that said, I just want to turn over to you, and you can give us a little bit of background and just kind of tell us about what happened and what the process has been like, and we'll get into some more dicey stuff as we move along.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on so that I can continue to use this platform to tell my story and to tell Michael's story, and to use every avenue that we can to fight for change so that we can get back to a place where our streets are safe. This wasn't just, two officers that were killed. These were two fathers that were killed, two husbands that were killed, two sons that were killed. This isn't, to everyone, this is just two officers that, went to a domestic violence call and didn't come home. But to the rest of us, they were our people. Michael and I both grew up in El Monte. We went to El Monte schools. That's where we met. We met in high school. We've been together for 24 years. And at 19, Michael started working as a cadet at El Monte PD. And at 20 and a half, he went to the academy. Michael grew up in a really difficult environment. He had gang members in his family. There was addiction issues in his family, drug dealers in his family. And Michael was truly that kid that wanted to break that cycle and make a difference and be the one of the family who was going to kind of pull them out of that situation. And he really did that. He really made his family really proud. He was always known as the officer's sergeant because he was very big on police safety. He was huge in the community, organizing several events for the community, for the kids. He held multiple positions, whether it was a position in the detective's office, SRO. He kind of played the field a little bit everywhere. And so he was in his 22nd year. He was acting sergeant that day, and he went to the call with Joseph Santana, and the call was a domestic dispute. And unfortunately, things happened very quickly, and both officers did not make it out of the hotel room. I was called by somebody at the station, and it's not unusual for me to get calls from the station because I've been a part of this police community for 22 years. So several of the officers are friends of ours, and usually the call sounds like, hey, Janine, nothing's wrong. Like, everything's good. Sort of like when the school calls you because your kid's sick and they want to make sure you don't panic. But the call was different this time. It was, where are you? And I said, I'm having dinner with a friend. What's wrong? I instantly knew, just from that reaction, that something was definitely wrong. And he said, Mikey was shot and I'm coming to get you. He was not working at the time. He lives nearby where I live. So he jumped in his car and he came and got me and my daughter. And my son was at football practice. And he took us to LA USC Medical Center. We didn't have a lot of information because we were getting a lot through via text, but because everything was actively going on while we were on the drive over, we had heard that Michael was still breathing when he arrived to the police station. But they did a CT scan that said that the brain where he was shot was pretty much inactive. And immediately I went into go mode of, okay, I'm going to have to make sure my house is ready for a wheelchair. I'm going to have to, I just immediately went to this place where, okay, how do I fix our life to accommodate whatever is going on with him? But we didn't originally even know he was shot, where he was shot. So on the way there, we're like, maybe it was just the arm. Maybe it was just the leg. Maybe he just got grazed. Like, we just had no information. So I didn't want to panic my kids. I, of course, was able to text my family members and everyone and friends, letting them know the situation. And it was very quickly on the news. There were already news media there when we arrived at the hospital. And that was probably one of the most difficult things to navigate, was this realization as we walked out of the hospital. Once my son had arrived, there were media trying to put cameras into the car where my son was. He came with my best friend. And when we met him outside of the hospital, it was just media everywhere, photographs, helicopters overhead. And so that was an instant realization that this was a very public thing. And I had to go straight into protection mode. And, once we were told that he did not make it, it was instantly, okay, now who do I need to be to make him proud? How do I now fill the shoes that he has filled his whole life, making everyone around him, his family, his friends, his coworkers, proud to know him. And I wanted to now be that person for him. And that's where I pull my strength. That's where I suddenly am given this opportunity to say, hey, we've got a little bit of an issue here. And this isn't just police related.
Well, we're definitely gonna get to that. And but I just have to sit here and listen to your perspective. It's a word that I use a lot, and I use it a lot because I try to apply it to myself, and I try to tell myself, you know what, every situation, we all can make a decision about how we're going to react. We cannot change circumstances, but we damn well have the ability to decide how we're going to respond to those circumstances. And listening to you about, you said the word, out of this, I say tragedy, it was an evil act. And also try to be careful about that. It was tragic what happened to Michael and to Officer Santana. It's tragic what happened to you, but the act itself was an evil act. But you used the word opportunity. You looked at this as a chance to honor your husband to honor the
Absolutely.
law enforcement community. And I'll tell you right now, this is not an easy thing to do. It's a decision one has to make. You made the decision, and my goodness, you continue to exhibit that behavior in that decision. So I just commend you for that. So getting into the ramifications of this incident, can you walk us through from over time what you learned about the incident itself? Actually, if you can, tell us what you know about the detail, how things transpired, what the call was like, what they were responding to exactly, no domestic violence, and then how this resulted in the loss of life of these two gentlemen, these two
Right.
heroes.
So, unfortunately, the case is not closed. And because we're here 8 months later, and the case, so all the information that I know has not come directly from the investigators who are investigating the entire situation. So I myself still have a lot of questions. I myself have not been debriefed on the situation. The El Monte police have not been debriefed on the situation. And so what I do know is that the call was made. I don't even know who made the call. Santana and Micheal arrived. The wife, who was the person that they had said had been either stabbed or there was some sort of dispute, came out of the hotel room. And then there's a lot of mixed information on what transpired between that point and the untimely death of these men. I do know that once they were shot, the murderer went outside and continued to exchange gunfire with El Monte PD. Meanwhile, officers had arrived and they transported Micheal in his vehicle and Joseph in his vehicle to the hospital because they felt that that was a faster way to get them there. Because obviously, paramedics cannot come into this situation. There was still active shooting. It's a crime scene now, and just getting ambulance and medical treatment into that area. So it was not a long drive between where they were and the hospital. And so I think they made the right choice in making that decision. We later, of course, found out that this person has a long history with the criminal justice system, that his last charge was a felon with possession. And there was also some substance issues.
To clarify, I do want to chime in a couple of things in case people don't understand. My understanding is that the LA County Sheriff's Department is the lead investigator on this shit, right? Correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Just so people understand, because sometimes maybe a smaller agency, El Monte PD is a smaller agency, they'll bring in a larger agency, in this case, the County Sheriff's Department, to investigate.
Of course. And there's a conflict of interest. So it's going to be, it's going to suit better when somebody not within the department is the one who's heading the investigation, so that there's no bias or, conflict.
Correct. And here I'll editorialize, just throw my opinion about some things that you're saying. So I want to make sure that the listeners and viewers who are not familiar with the area here in Southern California, LA County, USC Medical Center, like you said, where this incident occurred is really a short drive. It's straight off the 10 freeway from the shooting scene to LA County USC Medical Center, by the way, which is a fantastic facility for trauma victims, and this is the right place to go. And I agree with you. I think it was the right decision given the circumstances. And finally, you said a felon in possession. We're talking about a felon in possession of a firearm, correct, Janine?
Correct.
Yeah. And so this goes to the crux of the matter about what we're going to get into here with his record and what should have been done with this animal prior to this incident. So you take it from there.
Yeah. So, grab my little notes here so I get it all
please.
right.
I have my right over here, so we're good.
I strongly believe in making sure you know what you're talking about before you speak, because I don't want to give any misinformation. I want to be confident in the things that I say, so I make sure I do my homework.
Yeah, good for you.
Just trying to pull it out. So, this murderer, excuse me, his history, his criminal history started back in 2009, when he stole a car. And from 2009 all the way up until the day of his crime with my husband, he had about 14 interactions with the justice system. This was a combination of lots of drug charges, but also we've got a hit and run in there, burglary, grand theft, resisting arrest, driving on suspended or revoked licenses, identity theft, possession, and then in March of 2020, he was felon in possession of a firearm, and that should have been at minimum his second strike, possibly 3 strikes. I'm not exactly sure which strikes would have counted towards his strikes had we been in a different system right now. But he only served 20 days for his possession charge, coming that it should have been his, at minimum, his second strike. He should have served at least 80% of the 2-year formal sentencing that I believe he was given.
Well, we can back up because look, we're just going to go ahead and address the elephant in the room, and that is the so-called district attorney in LA County here. March of 2020, this guy has at this point 11-year history with law enforcement with the criminal justice system. He certainly should have been in prison at the time this incident. The incident wouldn't have occurred had he been in prison. But going back before George Gascon, you look at this track record. As bad as Gascon is, this guy didn't serve the amount of time that he should have for lesser offenses leading up to it. This is a culmination, and this is something that the level of frustration, even when I was still on patrol, the breakdown in the penalty phase in the criminal justice system was apparent. And this is going back when I was on patrol, and certainly after that. But let's just say going back 15 years, we'd see it coming. Saw it coming. And when you're literally booking people and they're getting out before you can finish the paperwork, and I mean that literally, I would have suspects laughing at me and on the way out, or see me 2 days later, the same place where I arrested them, literally. So this is a culmination, but George Gascon and other people like him across the country have taken this to an entirely new level of disregard for the oath they took, a whole new level. And again, I don't want to own the time here. I want people to hear from you. You, again, have exhibited strength and leadership and honor in your behavior. Can you talk about what steps you've taken, where you are right now in the civil justice system in regards to George Gascon?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have filed a suit, or we're in the phases of all of this because there's a lot of it takes a long time.
Mhm.
um, but we have begun, and we are in the process. Our claim is against both the district attorney's office as well as the probation office. The reason the probation office is also included in this is because the probation did not do their job and they were incredibly negligent in following up with him. So from the time that he had this possession charge, there had been reports to his probation officer that he was back on drugs, that his affiliation with the gang was back, and that he was being physically abusive towards his wife, girlfriend, whatever. And they did not follow up with that. In addition to that, they did not do their monthly one-on-ones with him. They couldn't even find him for 3 months. There was absolutely no one-on-one contact with him. The last time they spoke to him was June 2nd, which would be 12 days before everything happened. They told him that he was to meet them in person. And on the 6th, he didn't show up and no one went and got him. So the probation office has also failed to do their part as well.
Clearly.
Clearly. We are really fighting for the idea that the California 3-strike law is a requirement by the district attorney's office. It's not an option. They may be able to use their best discretion for non-serious, non-violent crimes. However, when you put a gang member who has severe drug issues and a criminal history, that is a recipe for disaster. And if you try to say that you didn't see that coming, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it is. Well, you summed it up. Recipe for disaster, and we saw that disaster on June 14th of 2022. Let me ask you this, Janine, and we'll continue with this. So I want to learn a little more about the civil proceedings you're engaged in now, and we'll talk about some small victories that just happened today. A couple small victories. We talked about the probation chief. I want you to talk about that, and I also want to talk about John and Tommy, another rock star in the DA's office, and is doing some great things. But what I certainly have my opinion. People know I'm opinionated. That's why I'm dumb enough to have a podcast here, because I like to talk. We lost the image, but we can still hear you, no problem.
I lost your image. I lost your image, so I turned mine off, hoping maybe I could get yours back up.
Well, listen. By the way, I'm used to women actually getting rid of my image whenever they can. So don't worry about that. That's normal. My wife does it all the time. So turns the lights out when I walk in. Smart woman. But let me ask you your opinion about what do you think is the motivation behind this on the part of George Gascon and other DAs around the country? In other words, to me, this is just breeding anarchy. It could not be more apparent to a 10-year-old that giving this type of leverage, just disregarding the punitive side of the criminal justice system to the extent these people are doing, is literally getting countless numbers of people, including police officers, killed. It's not disputable. It's factual. Right. What do you think is behind this? What do you think the motivation? What do you think the goal is of these people in power?
Well, I think there's two things. One is there's two parts to this. One is, like you said, when you have children, you teach them that when you don't behave, there are consequences to your actions. And if you continue to misbehave, those consequences are going to get more severe. What may start off as taking your cell phone away might turn into your cell phone and your gaming system, and now you're grounded. And this is how we teach our children how to become good citizens in the world. But then there's also that idea that we make mistakes, and there should be the idea of rehabilitation or reform. Now, I am all about the idea of rehabilitation and reform. But tell me what they did with this particular situation to rehabilitate or reform this man. They did nothing. They just sent him back out in the world, hoping that he didn't do anything. And if we're going to do reform and we're going to do rehabilitation, then let's do it. Let's do it wholeheartedly. Let's dive in. Let's increase our requirements for, drugs and alcoholism, addiction, mental health. All of these things are super, super important in the rehabilitation process, but none of that is being laid out. So they just want to talk about how they're changing the system, but they're not actually changing anything. They're just removing the rules, letting people go make more mistakes and hurt more people with no consequences.
Well, you said it beautifully, and you articulated the facts beautifully.
Thank you.
I have there's clearly, I'm not going to say there's a conspiracy, but there's certainly a thread of commonality, whether it's in Pennsylvania or Maryland or San Francisco, Los Angeles County. You look at the same types of behaviors from these DAs. There is something behind it. That's probably for their podcast. I certainly believe that. But again, it's resulting in chaos. It's resulting in a breakdown of a civil society that we harp on here. Listen, law enforcement's job is to ensure a civil society. Attorneys, prosecutors, their job is to ensure a civil society. Ensure justice is dealt out. Justice,
right?
Fair.
Right.
Justice should be blind. And the only blind person here is George Castone, because he cannot read a manual about how to be a DA, as far as I'm concerned. So getting on to a couple of recent victories, you talked about probation. And before we went on air, he talked about, actually, did it happen today? You just informed me. Yeah. I didn't know about this. Please tell the audience about this.
I believe that I have it right here. Let me just.
Don't worry, I'm bringing all my notes up too.
I'm going to get the exact information. So technically, he was fired on Tuesday, so yesterday. But the press made it public today. They gave him the opportunity to resign. He did not. His name is Adolfo Gonzalez. And he is
for the audience. Oh, go ahead. His title. Go ahead.
Los Angeles County Probation Department Chief. The Board of Supervisors voted for his firing after a long list of things that are clearly broken within the probation system. So it says that they said that it's the first step of a long road to fixing juvenile halls and supporting the youth. So they're using some specific situation that occurred in which he had dealing with something involving juveniles. And I think that was just kind of the final straw for them. It was something that they couldn't ignore.
Now, did they or hide? Well, did they articulate any of the things that we're talking about in there, or do you have that in front of you? Then if you don't, no problem. I'm just curious.
It says it's no secret our probation department is in crisis and needs strong leadership. I do not see Gonzalez rising to the challenge on multiple occasions. He lost what little was left of my support when I visited one of our juvenile halls a few weeks ago. Although I personally saw deficiencies and ensured they were communicated to the department, over a week later, nothing had been done, and this is unacceptable. So this was one of the board members. I believe that was one of their statements.
One of the LA County supervisors, or one of the board members from another entity?
Probation, I believe. One of the probation board members.
Gotcha. Well, listen, any reason he's out is a good reason. The more the merrier. These things need to be articulated. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. It's a start. This is a start. But people like you are fighters. I say it all the time on the show. Listen, be a fighter, or if you can't, not everybody can, then support the fighters. And we'll talk about a little bit about that. So, but you are a fighter. You have a lawsuit against Gascon, and you are so outspoken on this, Janine. It's fantastic. That's one small victory happened yesterday. We have another victory today we talked about just before we came on, and that was, I'll grab my notes for you on this one here. Los Angeles County jury awarded $1.5 million to a prosecutor as part of a retaliation lawsuit against District Attorney George Gascon, who faces similar complaints in a series of legal actions. So the man is not only completely disregarding his oath to the public and to his office, but he's also a small, insecure turd. I'm being nice here. A jury decided that he engages in retaliation. People stand up to him, they speak their mind, and he does not like it, and he exerts his power to make their lives difficult. And today, this deputy DA won a lawsuit against him. By the way, we do know that this is going to be won in a number of lawsuits similar to this one. They'll wind up against this man.
That's correct.
I want him to be hit with every legal possible tool in the toolbox, because we need to do whatever we can, everybody, to pressure this guy to leave office, to make his life as difficult as possible, at least somewhat as difficult as making it for the residents of Los Angeles County.
I think it's important to mention also that the 3-strike law is one of the directives that he gave, which was determined to already be illegal. And again, this was like 10 days before Micheal was killed. A judge said, you do not have the authority to make that decision. And he went on television and told the media that he was going to pump his brakes on his changed 3-strike policy. And all of these deputy district attorneys who are now suing him are saying, you did not let us do our job. You forced us to do illegal things because of your directive.
Well, this is exactly right. Put them in a position where they were their only choices. They could only really implement what he was allowing them to do. One of the most outspoken members of his staff, Deputy DA John Hatami, has been a rock star. And John and I have spoken.
Him and I have been in contact, actually.
It's great. It's fantastic. And he and I have been in contact, and he'll be a guest on the show sometime very soon. In fact, he was going to be a guest about 2 months ago or maybe 6 weeks ago. But he said, Mark, I'm sorry, I just starting trial for, and God forgive me, I'm forgetting the young man's name who was tortured and murdered.
Avalos?
Avila. Correct.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes. And this was,
won.
I think
that also came out. Yeah.
He won today. And he put these two monsters, we'll find out what the sentence is. To me, of course, it should be the death penalty. I'm sorry, torture, murder a child. I mean, what more can you do that's deserving of the death penalty? But it's California, so we're stuck with what we have. But We'll find out. But this is a man who understands what his obligation is to the public. And again, when I say this, we're talking about prosecuting. That simply means holding people accountable based on what the law says. That you don't have the ability to say, oh, I don't like that law, or that one is too harsh, or that one's not. You don't have that ability. Your job is to prosecute the law. I'm not a lawyer, but I've been in a lot of courtrooms and understand the adversarial process. Same thing on a defense attorney. Their job is to defend their client. That's fine. But we have a man in office who's not doing that. We do have men and women in office in their job who are doing that, and they're doing that in spite of what their boss encourages and tries to force them to do. John and Tommy is one of those men. I cannot wait to have him on the show. But he's putting these two monsters, I mean, my God, the mother of the child and her boyfriend who carried out some of the most heinous crimes against a child you can imagine. So kudos to John, not only for prosecuting the law, but being big enough to go on the air, to go public, and to denounce what George Gascon is doing to that office. I give him props and I wish him the best. And I'm so glad that he actually brought this to a great conclusion today in court.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've learned a lot from him, even in just watching his interviews and, doing my research on what the current deputy district attorneys are saying. And I learned a lot from him.
Yes. Well, we all have. I listen to him a lot on talk radio, and I'm sure that since this trial is just about over, we have a sentencing part that'll come, but he'll be back out in the public view here a little more. Janine, let me ask you this as we kind of wind things down here. First of all, it's just been a pleasure to talk with you. I think everybody listening to this is going to gain strength to say, you know what, if this woman can be the way that she is and carry herself the way she does, what challenges in life do I have compared to this? So God bless you for that. Is there anything or any place that our listeners and viewers can go to support you? And I want you to be generous to yourself. Is there anything that we can do financially or otherwise support you and your family, or the family of Officer Santana? Any place that we can go to do that?
So, right now, all of our, donation opportunities have closed because they do have time limits on them. But if you're somebody that would like to follow our story, I do have an Instagram page open. It's Paredes Pride 565. And it just is giving updates and information in regards to our case and our situation, to just continue to try and bring awareness. So that's all we're doing right now. At the end of the day, we're not asking for anything but to be heard, and to fight for change to get these criminals off the street, because it was my husband this time, but it could be your mother next time. It could be your sibling next time. It could be your child, by somebody who should have been in jail.
Janine Paredes, you're a rock star. You're a rock star. And I'm going to say that to everybody who I interact with and have a chance to talk to about you.
Thank you.
We did meet, so last year, our charity, the Leo Project, we were able to donate to your family and to the family of Officer Santana. So if you listeners want to help us to continue to help people like Janine, please go to Your Leo Project, yourleoproject.org. If you take this show seriously and you believe in what we're doing, help us to help those people who are making the ultimate sacrifice, like Janine and so many others across the country. Janine, God bless you. I look forward to talking with you and buying lunch and just catching up. And you take care of your family. And we'll have you on again as things progress with the mess we have in LA County.
Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. Good night.